What's up again, everybody? I'm Clayton. Welcome to the pack. So today we are looking at Cult of Chucky, released in 2017, directed by Don Mancini, starring the late great Brad Dourif coming back to play Chucky, Fiona Dourif coming back to play Nika. We also get Alex Vincent coming back to play Andy, and we get Jennifer Tilly coming back to play Tiffany. What's going on, everybody? So glad you're here. While you're here, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're enjoying the content and you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do so. Helps the channel out, and you get to be part of the pack, part of the family. So yeah, go ahead and do that while you're here. Yeah, we're going through the Chucky movies, working through Child's Play franchise, onto Cult of Chucky. Now, it'd been quite a while since I'd seen Cult of Chucky, so I was kind of excited to come back to it because from what I had remembered, I liked this movie from the previous time that I remember watching it. So I was eager to get back to it. Does it hold up? That's what we're going to look at. I'm going to give my thoughts on this movie, positives, negatives, break this movie down. You guys know the drill. Just as a reminder, this is just my opinion. No need to be upset or offended by anything I have to say. And with that being said, let's get rocking. So starting with the positives of Cult of Chucky, I did really like the tone and the setting of this film. I feel like Don Mancini did a pretty good job at carrying over that darker horror tone from Curse of Chucky, bringing that into this one. I got kind of that same vibe, that same feel, darker tone feel from this movie that I had in Curse of Chucky, which I really liked. That was a strong positive for me in that film. So I thought Don Mancini did a good job bringing that over. I also enjoyed the setting in this film. Did this kind of psychiatric hospital. It's kind of secluded. It's kind of off on its own. This is during the winter time. There's a lot of snow on the ground. It has this kind of cold, very secluded, lonely type of feel to it. And I like the setting. Hospitals freak me out. So some freaky stuff go on in hospitals. And I've always thought it's a good place to put a horror film in, like having a hospital of some sort, whether it's like an actual hospital or like a psychiatric ward or something like that, a nursing home. Like those are always, in my opinion, prime settings for horror films because they're creepy and they're eerie. And so I did like the setting here in Cult of Chucky as well, putting it in, kind of this loony psychiatric ward that just kind of gives you eerie vibes about it. So the tone was positive, the setting was positive. I also liked the kind of psychological horror element that Don Mancini was exploring here. It's a slasher film with kind of a psychological horror veneer to it. Like there's a lot of stuff going on psychologically that's horrifying with Nika and with these other inmates in this psychiatric care facility. And I enjoyed that. It made Chucky, in my opinion, it added a layer of horror to that Chucky character where he's just messing with you. Like he's not even out necessarily just to kill you, but he's toying with you. He's toying with your mind. He's messing with you. I enjoy that. It makes him more, it makes him darker, makes him more sadistic, and adds a layer of horror to that Chucky character, which I'm all for. So I like that they didn't just make this a cutthroat, straightforward slasher film, but they kind of dove into like the psychological tension and psychological horror with some of these characters. I enjoy that. It just makes it for kind of this crazy bonker type of experience, and it's it's entertaining, it's enjoyable. You can do a lot with, like, when you're pursuing the psychological horror stuff. There's a lot you can do there, and so that was that was a positive for me. I also like the acting. I thought the acting was pretty good by most everyone. There are a couple of actors here that I thought were significantly a step down from the main cast, but overall I thought, like, Fiona Dorff did a solid job. She's got to show some range here, and I thought she pulled that off nicely. So she was a good job. I thought the actors that played some of the other inmates did a pretty solid job. They were believable. I bought into their, psychological issues and stuff. Although I don't think Don Mancini did a very good job at explaining some of these psychological issues. Schizophrenia. Like the one inmate lady that has schizophrenia, she knows that she's schizophrenic, which isn't really consistent with schizophrenia. People that have schizophrenia don't know that they have schizophrenia. They don't think anything's wrong with them. They don't think that they're seeing people. To them, when they see someone, it's just like you or I seeing our coworkers or our family members. That's how real it is to them. Like, the fact that lady knows or is aware that she sees people or that she has schizophrenia isn't accurate to how schizophrenics actually are. To them, it is reality to them. So, and that was one thing. And there's another psychological disorder or something else from one of the other characters that, the guy that had the multiple personalities or whatever. Again, Don Mancini didn't really explore that very well because that's not accurate to what's actually officially called DID in the Diagnostical Statistical Manual for Psychology. For what we know as multiple personality disorder, it's actually called DID, dissociative identity disorder. And the way that Don Mancini kind of explores that, again, isn't accurate. People with that disorder don't just change from one personality to the other personality and then right back to their true personality. Typically, when someone has that disorder, they will stay in one person for an extended period of time. And they usually don't have control over the other personalities. They can't just come back to their true personality whenever they want. It doesn't work that way. And so when I'm watching it, because I was a psychology major and I learned about this stuff, when I watch this movie, those minor things that probably don't bother the layperson, they bother me, because to me it just shows a lack of homework by Don Mancini. It's just kind of lazy writing. He probably just heard about schizophrenia or heard about multiple personality, the DID, and just like, I'll just write that into the script without actually looking into those things and doing his homework, putting in the labor to actually learn about those things before writing about them. So to me, it's just, it kind of screamed lazy writing there by Don Mancini. So that kind of bothered me. But overall, I did like the psychological horror of the film, and the acting, but for the most part, was a positive for me. I also enjoyed the kills and the gore. I thought he definitely upped the ante here in this one with the gore and the kills, even from Curse of Chucky, which had some pretty gnarly kills in it. Don Mancini even ups it again in this one and gives us some pretty gnarly kills, man, that I really enjoyed. My favorite was probably the doctor when Chucky, or I guess technically it's Nika, she stomps his head in with her heels. That was a pretty sick kill. That's just a classic slasher type of powerful, savage type of kill. You just stomp a person's face in. You know, Michael's done that. Jason's done that. So having Chucky do that through Nika in this one was pretty cool. So some really cool kills with a lot of slasher gore that you want in one of these movies. That was a positive for me. I also did like that Don Mancini actually gave us a plot here with our protagonists. Nika and Andy, kind of the two main protagonists, actually have a plot in this film. They actually have a goal of what they're trying to achieve, what they're trying to do. Andy is trying to find Nika to save her from Chucky, to protect her from Chucky. That's his goal. That's his plot in this film. Nika is trying to prove to the doctors and to the clinic that this Chucky doll is real. That's her plot. Like, both of our protagonists actually have something to do in this film. There's an actual plot for them to, and a story for us to kind of follow, a plot for us to follow through this film. That was something that kind of lacked in Curse of Chucky, but I do think Don Mancini, I don't know why I keep saying Don Mancini gave us an actual clear plot for our protagonist in this film. And that's something that I did appreciate and enjoy. And then the other thing that I did like, again, Chucky wins in this film. I think Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky are arguably the two darkest Chucky films in the franchise. When you think about the fact that Chucky wins in both of these movies, you know, here he's walking out of the clinic as Nika, and he drives off with Tiffany in the film, and that's how the film ends. You know, Chucky wins at the end of this franchise, you know, before they reboot it in the next film. And that's pretty dark, man. So again, to me, that's how a horror film kind of should end. It should horrify you, and you know, give you a dark opening and a dark closing. And I feel like Don Mancini did end it on a dark horror note, and that's something that I did appreciate with this film. So that's pretty much all I got positive wise. Moving into the negatives, I just wasn't a fan of the cult idea. To me, it's really hard to buy and, you know, go along with the fact that, look, Charles Lee Ray is a singular person. He is one person. He is not omnipresent. He doesn't have the ability to become multiple deities, multiple persons. Like, he is one singular person. So the fact that as a spirit, he's able to clone his own spirit and put his spirit into multiple bodies makes absolutely no sense. And they give zero explanation as to how he's able to do that, other than, well, he just says his little voodoo spell. The problem is, there's been, 6 other films prior to this, and he's never been able to do that before. So why start that here when there's no setup for that in any of the prior films? He's never been able to do that before. You know, saying a voodoo spell doesn't clone your own spirit. Like, you can't clone your spirit. You only have one spirit. You're only one person. You know, like, if this is a superhero movie and one of the characters has the power of, like, cloning himself, that's different. But here, Charles Lee Ray isn't a superhero. He doesn't have superpowers. He's a singular person with one singular spirit. And yet he's able to clone his spirit with this spell that for 6 films prior only allows him to cast his singular spirit into another singular body. It just makes absolutely no sense to me. It's incoherent. And I just don't buy it. I'm checked out for the majority of this film because the whole idea just doesn't work in this franchise with this particular character. Also, some bad dialogue here by Don Mancini. just some random weird lines that he throws in by characters. This guy, nurse guy, apparently has a husband, which whatever that means. Okay. Some weird lines by Chucky, some weird lines by some of the other characters that just isn't really natural or genuine dialogue. A lot of filler and rehashing, like the whole opening sequence with Andy in the restaurant with the girl and then back at home with Chucky. There's absolutely nothing that we learn in that entire opening sequence. Nothing. Everything that we are told in that opening sequence is stuff that we already knew. It's all it is rehashing material that we already know, that we already have. There's no new information given. There's no developing the story or characters. That entire opening sequence was just a waste. You could take that out and nothing changes in the movie. So, and there's a lot of that. Like the whole middle act was just wash, rinse, repeat of the same plot. Nika trying to prove Chucky exists. And we're introduced to all these characters. They're sitting through, counseling meetings, and it's just that same thing being rehashed over and over again. There's very, very little story at all in this film, and it just felt like a lot of filler and a lot of rehashing old material that we already know. And it just, I was checked out. I couldn't invest really in the story very much with this film. No depth to any of the characters either. Like he doesn't really dig deep into who these characters are. All the characters are pretty shallow and pretty just flat the whole time. There's no depth to any of them. He doesn't give us any virtues or values or show us what these characters stand for or anything like that. They're just very shallow characters with no depth to them. So there's not really any characters I can really invest with either in this film. And then just some awkward scenes, those really uncomfortable scenes, like Nika at the very end kissing Tiffany, which I get that she's possessed by Charles Lee Ray, but it's still Brad Dourif's daughter, Fiona Dourif, kissing Jennifer Tilly, who has been Brad Dourif's co-worker in the prior films and who was his wife at one point in the film. Tiffany, the Tiffany character, is now making out with Brad Dourif's daughter in real life. That just seems really weird and awkward and a bit uncomfortable, if I'm being honest. So yeah, just some weird scenes, man. And then no closure with Andy. Like Andy gets to the hospital to kill Chucky, to save Nika. Nika closes him in the elevator and then just leaves the facility. And that's how it ends. Like there's no closure with Andy. What happens with Andy? I mean, does he get out? What happens after that? Does he find, like, we're not given any of that. It just ends abruptly. And Andy was the original character in the first film. He's kind of the main opponent against Chucky, this entire franchise, and yet we get absolutely no closure with him to end this initial run of films. And that, to me, that was kind of upsetting, because it's like, well, we spend all this time with this character, all these films with this character, and we get absolutely no closure with them. So it just felt like a waste. So overall, guys, not a fan of this movie. I'd give it 1.5 stars as a rating. I think it's incredibly weak. The whole cult idea just doesn't work. It makes absolutely no sense. There's very little story to latch onto, no depth to any of the characters, bad dialogue, and just stuff in there that isn't needed, a lot of filler. And yeah, it does have some things going for it that, I can't appreciate, but overall still not a good time. It was a lot worse than what I had remembered it being. And that was a bit disappointing. So there you go, guys. That's my thoughts on Cult of Chucky. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Hope you guys enjoyed. And until next time, kick it and rock on.